For 30 years, the JonBenét Ramsey case has been defined by one thing: noise. A storm of theories, mistakes, and constant speculation. Well, today is different. We're in 2026, and we're not here to talk about old theories. We're here because the science has finally caught up. We can now give a voice to evidence that's been silent for 3 decades. So this is a forensic briefing on how technology is finally beginning to rewrite one of the most infamous cold cases in America. To really get what a huge leap we've made, you have to understand just how different the worlds of 1996 and 2026 are. Back then, investigators got a partial DNA profile. It was like a faint, staticky whisper on a bad radio line. Today, from that exact same evidence, we can pull a full genetic identity. This isn't just an upgrade. It's like going from a single blurry photograph to a full-length high-definition movie. It's a whole new ballgame. All right, so before we dive into the breakthrough, we have to understand the breakdown. We need to rewind the clock to 1996 and look at the forensic missteps that turned this case into a 30-year puzzle in the first place. You always hear that the first 24 hours are golden in any investigation. Well, in this case, they were a catastrophe. This timeline here shows a cascade of errors, starting from the very moment that 911 call was placed, that just completely undermined the entire scene from the get-go. This right here was the original sin of this entire investigation. Rule number 1 in any crime scene is you lock it down, you secure it, period. But that didn't happen. Instead, police allowed friends and family to just wander freely through the house for hours. It created this fog of forensic noise that has hung over this case for 3 decades. But here's the amazing thing. Even in all that chaos, one piece of evidence managed to survive. A single, critical clue that cut through all the noise and pointed directly to someone who was never supposed to be there. Investigators found foreign male DNA in 2 separate, crucial spots on JonBenét's clothing. They called it unknown male 1. And here's the key. It didn't match her father, it didn't match her brother, it didn't match anyone in the family. This was definitive proof that an outsider was there. So you'd think, great, smoking gun, right? Well, not so fast. The profile was uploaded to CODIS, the FBI's criminal database. But CODIS is like a lock and key system. You need an exact match to a criminal who's already in there. If your guy isn't in the system, you get nothing, zilch. And that's exactly what happened. The trail went ice cold for 30 years. But now it's 2026, and we are not limited by those old methods anymore. We have 2, count them, 2 major technological revolutions that have given us a whole new arsenal. We can go back to that exact same evidence and pull out information they couldn't have even imagined in 1996. So the first game changer is our ability to work with something called touch DNA. This is the stuff that was basically invisible to science back then. We can now take the most microscopic traces of human contact and basically blow them up into a complete genetic story. And how small are we talking about? Well, we can now generate a full, viable DNA profile from as few as 5 human skin cells. That's it. I mean, think about that. An amount so tiny you'd never see it, left behind by the briefest, most accidental touch. It's absolutely incredible. The way we do it is pretty remarkable. First, we carefully lift those few microscopic cells from the original evidence, let's say a piece of fabric. Then, we use a process to essentially photocopy that DNA over and over, making millions of copies from that tiny, tiny sample. Once we have enough copies, we can sequence it and build a full genetic profile. We're literally turning a whisper into a shout. Now, having a complete profile is amazing, but that's only half the battle. If the person isn't in a criminal database, you still don't have a name. And that's where the second revolution comes in. We now have a completely different way to figure out who this profile belongs to. Remember the old method, CODIS? It was like looking for one specific book in a library. If that exact book with that exact title isn't on the shelf, well, you're out of luck. Your search is over. It was a simple all-or-nothing game. But investigative genetic genealogy, it's totally different. It's like finding a single page from that book and using it to identify the author's entire family tree. We're not looking for the suspect directly anymore. We're looking for anyone even remotely related to them. So I know what you're thinking. How on earth does finding a 3rd or 4th cousin, someone who's probably never even met our suspect, actually lead us to our person of interest? It's a fascinating process, really.
It's like we become historical detectives. We upload the crime scene DNA to public genealogy sites and find those distant relatives. Then, the real work begins. Using public records, birth certificates, marriage licenses, old census data, we build their family trees backwards in time until we find a common ancestor they all share. Once we find that great-great-grandparent, we build the tree forward again, tracing every descendant, until, through a process of elimination, it all points to a single person.
And this isn't a theory, this is proven. This is how major cold cases are being solved right now. A faint genetic echo from a relative, someone who just wanted to learn about their heritage, can become the key to solving one of the most notorious murders in modern history. It's a fundamental shift. So we took these two powerful technologies and applied them to that unknown male one evidence. And what we got is the first truly significant breakthrough in this case in 3 decades. Here are the results. We successfully amplified that original touch DNA into a near-complete genetic profile. We then uploaded that profile and we got hits, multiple distant relatives. From there, by building out those family trees, we have generated a brand new list of persons of interest. And this is the most crucial part. These new leads have absolutely no connection to the Ramsey family or any of the old theories that have swirled around this case for years. These leads were generated by pure, unbiased data. It's a completely new direction, guided by science and science alone. Ultimately, it really comes down to this. For 30 years, this case has been buried under a mountain of opinions, theories, and accusations. But as this quote says, DNA does not have an opinion. DNA does not have a bias. DNA simply tells the truth. And after all the noise, the evidence is finally speaking for itself. Which leaves us with one final important question. We now have the technology to see right through the mistakes of the past, to follow a trail that has been cold for a generation. The DNA is talking. The only question now is what it will finally tell us.